Hello and welcome back everyone to another lecture of biology in Fun Scholar. So today we are going to continue with the chapter organization in the living organisms, that is the chapter of class 7 ICSE. So in the last lecture we have seen about the meristematic tissues in plants, and today we will start from the permanent tissues which are there in plants. So we have known in the previous lecture the differences between the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues, the process of differentiation, de-differentiation and re-differentiation, and today we will delve deeper into the world of permanent tissues in plants. So now speaking about the permanent tissues, we need to know that permanent tissues, why they are called permanent? Because they gain a permanent structure, right, which cannot be further changed. So permanent means they do not divide further, right? So unlike meristematic tissues which actually divide, from the name itself we have seen the literal meaning of meristematic tissue means to divide and give rise to new cells that help in either increasing the height or the girth of the plant body. But in this case, permanent tissue, they actually lose the capability to divide, and that is why they are called permanent tissues. But they can also regain back the capability to divide, as we have seen in the case of dedifferentiation, and that was the special case in case of plants. Now let's watch a video regarding permanent tissues, what it's all about and what are its characteristics. Okay, so let's begin.
What did we study in our last lesson? We studied about meristematic tissues, right? Now tell me one thing. Do plants also have permanent tissues right when they germinate from seeds? Permanent tissues are composed of cells that have lost the power of dividing. That is kind of out of place, right? The plant is growing and thus must have only meristematic tissues. Permanent tissues will be tissues that are already present and those that do not divide. So initially, if the plant does not have permanent tissues, where does it come into the picture? I'm sure this is a mind-boggling question. The answer is actually quite simple. When meristematic tissues have divided and reached the final stage of division, they attain maturity. After this point, these tissues do not divide anymore. They only get differentiated into different parts, and these non-dividing tissues then become permanent tissues. Did you understand what this means? It means both the meristematic tissues and permanent tissues are one and the same. When tissues grow and divide, they are known as meristematic tissues. And when they finally mature and divide no more, they become permanent tissues. So permanent tissues are nothing but mature meristematic tissues. Do you know there are only two types of permanent tissues? Can you take a guess at their names? Yes, they are simple tissues and complex tissues. We will look at the simple permanent tissues in detail. So when the word simple means they have a very simple structure. All the cells of a simple permanent tissue are almost the same. Do you know that there are three subtypes of the simple permanent tissue? Yes, and do you want to know what they're called? Parenchyma, parenchyma, and sclerenchyma are the three types of simple permanent tissues. If you must know in one word what each of these tissues do, let us see what they can be called otherwise. Parenchyma can be called a filler tissue. Parenchyma is a supporter, while sclerenchyma is a protective tissue. We will look at each of these tissues in detail in upcoming videos. Stay tuned.
So what did we come to know from the video? That we come to know from this video that there are different types of permanent tissues in plants. Broadly, we have categorized them into simple permanent tissues and complex permanent tissues. Why simple? Because these permanent tissues are made up of same type of cells. For example, the protective tissue, the supportive tissue. So all these tissues are made up of the same type of cells. Whereas the complex permanent tissues, that is the conductive tissues or the vascular bundles, in other words, that is the xylem and phloem, are made up of different types of cells. So here the simple permanent tissue is made up of same type of cells. Each type of tissue consists of same type of cells, whereas the complex permanent tissue consists of different types of cells. So now we have known that under simple permanent tissue, we have got three types of tissues, right? Parenchyma, polenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Right. These are the three simple permanent tissues found in the plant body. So parenchyma is known as the filler tissue. Filler means which fills up. Fills up what? It is also known as the packaging tissue. It is also known as the packaging tissue. It helps to pack the plant body. For example, below the layer of epidermis, we have already know from the previous lecture that epidermis acts as the skin of the plant body, and so below the layer of the epidermis you will find this parenchymatous type of cells, and these parenchymatous type of cells are specialized for the different needs of the plant. For example, when parenchyma consists of chlorophyll and conducts the process of photosynthesis, that type of parenchyma is known as chlorenchyma. Right? So, what is chlorenchyma? Chlorenchyma is a type of parenchymatous tissue which bears chlorophyll and is able to conduct the process of photosynthesis. And another type of parenchymatous tissue is erenchyma. What is erenchyma? Erenchyma consists of air. Now can you guess what will be its function and where can this type of tissue be found? Yes, so its function is to make the leaves. These are present in the leaves of the plants, and since they are filled with air, erenchyma is filled with air. So if something is filled with air, what will happen? It will make that thing very light. So therefore, it is very obvious that erenchymatous tissue will be found in the leaves of the plants which float on the surface of water. So that means it provides buoyancy. It provides buoyancy. So therefore, it helps the leaves of the aquatic plants to remain afloat on the surface of the water. So there are various types of the parenchymatous tissue. Similarly, parenchyma is a type of tissue that is supportive in nature and that also provides flexibility, right? It provides flexibility to the plant parts. For example, you might have seen when you try to lower down any branch or you want to lower down a particular a leaf, the petiole or the twig or the branch, it bends down, right? So that bending capacity is provided by this flexible parenchymatous tissue. So therefore, it is a type of supported tissue. It helps the plant to protect itself from breakage. And last type of simple permanent tissue is sclerenchyma, which helps the plant to actually protect itself. Its nature is protective. Its nature is protective. Sclerenchyma is made up mostly of the dead cells because since their nature is just like we have seen when the bark of the tree that is made up of dead cells. Why? Because the only function is to provide the mechanical support, and another advantage of dead cells is that it requires less maintenance. So similar is the case for sclerenchyma. It provides protection, mechanical support, and also it will require less maintenance. That is why it is made up of dead cells. So this is the gist of three types of simple permanent tissues. Now let's have a watch in the video.
If you recollect, we concluded the previous video by getting introduced to the three simple permanent tissue types. Now let's dive deeper into these tissues and know more about them. The first one in our list is the parenchyma. Now since this tissue acts as a filler, it is usually found present at many locations in the plant body. It is characterized by loosely packed, thin-walled cells which are living. The tissue contains large spaces between the cells so that, besides providing support, it can also be used to store food. But is this it? Absolutely not. Interestingly, parenchyma can be modified depending upon the need of the plant as well. For instance, say when plants of aquatic habitat require buoyancy, they rely on the parenchyma cells that bend large air cavities within and help them in floating. So in this case, we refer to this modified form as parenchyma. Let's get to another example as well. In some plants, chlorophyll is found to be an integral part of the parenchyma cells, and thus such forms are called as parenchyma cells. They are capable of performing photosynthesis. Besides these, parenchyma cells found in roots and the stem help in the storage of water and certain nutrients. Now let's get into the next type, that is the parenchyma, the one that helps our plants achieve flexibility. Yes, you heard me right. Well, you may wonder, why do plants need flexibility? They don't even move like us. I must say, you are wrong. Because not only do they move their parts, but even dance to the beautiful rhythm of the air. And what about the scary storms of Mother Nature? Well, in order to deal with all the physical exertion, plants need flexibility along with strength, right? So this is given by the parenchyma, which allows the bends and movements without breaks in various plant parts, like the little twigs, stems, leaves, etc. So what do you think will the tissues be made up of? In contrast to the previous one, it contains cells with thick corners, which are elongated in shape and possess very little intercellular space. And these cells are also, of course, living cells. scale of rigidity, let's land up on the last type, which is the toughest of these three simple permanent tissues. Yes, correctly guessed. We are talking about the sclerenchyma, the tissue responsible for stiffness in plant structures. To understand this, let's think of a simple example, the coconut. We know that it has an outer husk which is so hard, right? Well, that's exactly where we can locate this sclerenchyma tissue. Now, since its function is to provide strength to the plants, its characteristics must be surely different from the remaining two types. So the first contrasting feature is that sclerenchyma cells are dead. Yes, the cells of this tissues are dead. Not only this, but they also possess deposition of lignin deposited in the cell walls. Lignin is nothing but a thick and hard cementing substance. Secondly, the cells are long and narrow and have absolutely no space within them as the walls are remarkably thick. So usually, where do you think we would find sclerenchyma in the plant body? Well, a few locations to be counted would include the leaf veins, around vascular bundles, in the tough coverings of our favorite nuts, and even seeds. And yes, of course, in the stem of the plants. Well, this was about the simple permanent tissues found in plants. So what next? After simple arrives complex. So we need to look at the complex tissues as well. But before that, we need to take a glance at another important tissue called epidermis that forms a layer throughout the plant body. So let's learn some more interesting stuff about the epidermis layer.
So I think the idea is now clear. We have already learned about the epidermal tissue in our last lecture. Okay, so now we'll proceed forward. So the simple permanent tissue, which is the type of protective tissue, you can see here the epidermis that has been discussed earlier also. It prevents the loss of water, mechanical injuries and invasion of parasites in case of the terrestrial plants, and it has got a deposition of cuticle in case of the plants growing in the arid regions in order to prevent excess loss of water. And wherever stomata will be present, epidermis will not be there in order to aid in the gaseous exchange. So this is a brief summary of three types of simple permanent tissues. So therefore, according to their structure and according to their function and their location, you can compare them in this column-wise comparison table. That parenchyma is a non-specialized large thin-walled living cells which are used usually for the storage of food or nutrients and water that you have watched in the video. Then collenchyma is the one which actually provides the flexibility and mechanical support, and sclerenchyma provides rigidity and toughness to the plant body, and their structure is also different. Parenchyma are the cells which are loosely bound and have got intercellular spaces. Collenchyma has negligible intercellular space and thickened corners, whereas sclerenchyma has got no intercellular space and they are dead cells. The only dead type of tissue among all the three is the sclerenchymatous tissue. Now we need to know about complex permanent tissues. Now let's have a brief introduction, then we'll go into watching the video. So what do we understand by complex permanent? I already told in the introduction that complex means they are made up of different types of cells. So as of now, we have learned about the simple permanent tissues in which all the cells were of similar kind, but here all the cells will be different type, the structures will be different, some will be dead, some will be living, and also their function will also vary. So therefore, they are a group of cells which are differing in their structure and their function. So therefore it is known as complex permanent tissues. So now let's watch a video regarding this. কালকে কোথায় বেরিয়ে গেলি রে?
After taking a look at the illness, let's look ahead and talk about complex cognitive tissues in plants. As the name suggests, are these complicated? Are they too complex to understand? Not really. Just like us, even plants need and perform multitasking. So in order to be efficient in various activities, plants have different types of cells coming together to form one type of tissue. Thus, we call them as the conducting tissues or even vascular bundles, which are nothing but the complex tissues. So the two major types of complex tissues are xylem and phloem. Well, are just two? Well, one performs the task of conduction of water and minerals, while the other performs the task of conduction of food. They have subdivisions as well to take care of accessory work. What do we mean by accessory work? It includes activities like regulating the flow of food, storage of food, and so on. Now, if we take a look at the cross-section of this part of the plant, then it looks somewhat like this. These components are the first type of connective tissues that we refer to as xylem. Xylem cells are usually thick-walled and are dead. The four major types of cells that make up xylem are tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. Now their functions are evident from the names itself. Tracheids and vessels, as we can see, have tubular structures. Thus, their role is to conduct water and minerals in the vertical direction. Xylem parenchyma, unlike the normal parenchyma, mainly helps in conducting water sideways along with the function of storage of food. Lastly, xylem fibers. What do you think will be their function? Yes, being fibers, they will give mechanical support to the plant. Now let's talk about the next type, which is phloem, the one which helps in transport of food. Phloem, similar to xylem, is made of four components: swift tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fibers. Again, we can guess their structures and functions from their names. Swift tubes, as we can see, have perforated walls. Now, why is perforation in walls needed during transportation? Well, walls help in passing food molecules across in various directions. But the pores will not know how much food is to be passed or in which direction. Hence, this process is regulated strictly by the companion cells present around the sieve tubes. They guide the sieve tubes with the amount and direction of food molecules to be passed through. Now you know why they're called companion cells, right? And the phloem parenchyma will be responsible for, yes, for storing food whenever required. And the phloem fibers will similarly perform the function of providing support. Among all these cells, the phloem fibers are the dead ones, while others are living cells. The unique characteristic of phloem is that substances can move through it in both the directions, in contrast to xylem that conducts water vertically from roots to the leaves. Well, this was about the complex permanent tissues in plants. Now, after plants, we will discuss about animal tissues in the upcoming videos.
So again, we have known from the video the summary of the xylem tissue and the phloem tissue. Now, xylem tissue conducts water and the dissolved minerals in it, and phloem tissue conducts the food materials prepared by the leaves. So, xylem helps in transportation of Oh, it is written. Okay. Transportation of water and minerals unidirectionally, that we will discuss now. And this is transporting food bidirectionally. Okay. Now, transportation of food by phloem is also known as translocation. That means translocating the food molecules. So therefore, why does it happen? So since xylem conducts water and minerals from the roots to the leaves, right, for the process of photosynthesis to take place in the kitchen of the plants. But in case of food, what happens? Primarily when leaves are making the food, so the prepared food is distributed through phloem to all the parts of the plants, right? This is one direction. Now, when leaves fall off or during the time when leaves are not able to prepare the food, such as the night time or the time when this is the autumn or the season of the winter, so there is no, or cloudy days when there is no proper sunlight, so what will happen? The stored food will be now distributed to all the parts of the plant in order to keep the plant alive. So then again the second direction will be from the storage areas of the plant to all the parts of the body wherever there is requirement of food. This is the second direction. So one direction is from the kitchen to all parts of the plant, that is from the leaves and to all the parts, and the second direction is from the storage organs wherever the food can be stored, either in the stem or in the roots or the fruits, so any other parts of the plant wherever the food will be stored to other parts wherever it is required. So that is why it is known that translocation of food through phloem is bidirectional, but the transportation of water and minerals through xylem is unidirectional. So the water is only required by the green parts of the plant for photosynthesis, but food is required all the time by all the parts of the plant in order to stay alive. So now this was all about the plant tissues. Again, we are going to summarize the functions of the components of the xylem and phloem. We have already watched in the video the tracheids and trachea. This is also known as trachea. So trachea are the tubular structures which are got wider lumen, and tracheids are narrow lumen structures which actually help in the transportation of water and minerals in one direction, and the vessels actually aid in that process. So and then there is xylem parenchyma, which is present in order to store food and also to distribute the food materials laterally, that means sidewise. So they store the excess food and also they help to distribute the water and the minerals laterally. This is for the longitudinal, that means this is for the one directional flow, and that is from bottom to upward, and this xylem parenchyma helps in the lateral flow of water and minerals. And also xylem fibers are there for providing mechanical strength and support. And for phloem, seed tubes now do not contain any type of nucleus. No nucleus, right? Sieve tubes do not contain any type of nucleus. So the companion cells, that is why they cannot decide. You have already watched in the video that they cannot decide that how much food will be translocated and from which direction. So therefore companion cells are there to decide that for the sieve tubes. The seed tubes are perforated for the food molecules to pass through, and in this case of phloem tissue, the phloem fibers, they also provide the mechanical support just like the xylem fibers. But here all the cells are alive except the phloem fibers which are dead. But on the contrary, in xylem tissue, all the cells are dead except the xylem parenchyma, which is alive because it stores food. It then also helps in the lateral transportation of water and minerals. It contains the nucleus. So they are the live cells. So we can now wrap up about the plant tissue with the information about the complex permanent tissue, and we will now move on to the next type of tissue, that is the animal tissue. So animal tissue, we have already known why we were differentiating between the plant and the animal tissue. From the video we know that animal tissues are alive. Why? Because animals, including the human beings, they can locomote from one place to another. So they require lots of energy, and if the cells are not alive, the production of energy in all the cells will not suffice the energy requirement. So therefore, all the cells need to be alive. Then there are various categories of animal tissues that we'll now learn one by one. So just like the epidermis in case of the plant body, which forms a protective outer covering of the plant body, we have got epithelial tissue which is present in our skin, which also provides protection and forms the outer covering of the animal body, including that of human beings. So now we have known, apart from epithelial tissue, we have got another types of tissues such as muscular tissue, means the muscles. Now among the muscles, we have got the smooth muscles which act according to their own will. They are involuntary in nature. Then we have got skeletal muscles attached to the bones of the skeleton of our body, which we can move according to our own will. And then we have got a specialized type of muscular tissue which is present only in our heart, that is the cardiac tissue. And then we have got the nervous tissue consisting of the neurons, and they are part of the nervous system. Then we have also got the connective tissue consisting of the bones, ligaments, tendons, and the fluid connective tissue, that is the blood. So in all these types of tissues, we will study that how their structure vary from one another, how their functions also differ from one another. But the main thing that we need to know collectively is that they all participate in their functions, as in like just like the principle of biological hierarchy that we have studied in the beginning, that division of labor. They participate in their functions under this principle of division of labor. Each type of tissue has got certain specialized functions, and they carry out them in the manner that the higher level of them can carry out the next set of functions simultaneously. That means after them. So this is all about the animal tissues. Now let's watch a video regarding the first type of animal tissue that we are going to study about, that is the epithelial tissue.
tissues, let us take a look at the various types of animal tissues in detail. In case of animals, where the body is expected to perform uncountable functions simultaneously, it is obvious that the number of tissues will also be innumerable, right? So how do we study all these? Well, we don't need to worry. For simplicity, we would prefer dividing all the animal tissues into four major categories depending on their functions. Firstly, we have the one for protection, then another for connection, followed by movement and locomotion, and lastly for transmission of signals for quick and efficient work. Based on this, we get the four major types of tissues as epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous. So in this video, let's begin with the first type, that is the epithelial tissue. As the name says, epi is above, thus epithelial tissue is the one which lies above the entire body, forming a protective covering. Along with covering the body, it also forms a barrier between the various organs separating them. Now the structure of the epithelial tissue is quite evident from its function. Yes, since it has to perform a protective layer, it cannot afford to have spaces between the cells. Hence, we find the epithelial tissue to have tightly packed cells forming continuous sheets. The tissues lack intercellular spaces and has extremely small amount of cementing material. So every single substance that passes in or out of the cells needs to cross the epithelial layer at least once. Accordingly, the permeability of cells will differ in various epithelia depending upon the exchange of materials. Now, when we talk about all the epithelial cells in general, we need to first understand a common characteristic between them. May it be any different type of epithelia, all of them will always have the cells resting on a thin, fibrous supportive membrane-like structure. This is called the basement membrane. The basement membrane, apart from supporting, helps to hold the cells together in a single straight line to form a uniform and consistent layer. Okay, so getting back to the types of epithelia, in order to study them, let's take a simple example. Imagine this to be a basement membrane. Now, depending upon the functions, let's classify them. So let's say the first function is filtration. What kind of structure should be present according to you? Yes, it needs to be a very flat surface. So this type of epithelium is referred to as simple squamous epithelium. Now let's take up the next function, that is absorption and secretion. For this, obviously we will need a larger surface area, right? Which is why we have these tall pillar-like cells on the basement membrane making up the columnar epithelium. Now at times, we need the strength or support along with the larger surface area. In this case, we slightly change the structure to cube-like cells and form the cuboidal epithelium. Lastly, we have certain organs that need specialized secretions. So in such cases, we need to modify a few cells that would perform secretion of specific chemicals like hormones or enzymes. These are called the gland cells, and the epithelium consisting of such type of cells is called the glandular epithelium. Well, this is about the epithelial tissue in short. Now let's meet up in the next video where we will discuss these four types of epithelia.
So, as watched in the video, we can now summarize once again. Four types of epithelial tissue can be found in the animal body. The first one is the simple squamous epithelial tissue. The simple squamous epithelial tissue helps in the process of filtration, as you have seen. So, therefore, it forms a continuous sheet and without any intercellular space, and it also forms a semi-permeable membrane. It also forms a semi-permeable membrane which allows, since this is filtration, so definitely it will allow the molecules to some molecules to pass through, and the other ones which are undesirable to remain on other side only. It will not allow them to pass through. That is why it is known to be protective in nature also. It is protective in nature, and also it helps to protect us against the pathogens as well as the toxins secreted from other infected cells, and also from the impurities present in the outside environment. So this nature is mainly protection. You can compare the structure as well as the function of epithelial tissue in animals to that of the epidermal tissue present in the plant body. So therefore both of them have comparative structure and function, because both of them protect the body, either the plant body or the animal body, and both of them forms a continuous sheet without any intercellular space where the cells are tightly packed, and they performs the other functions also, such as the function of filtration, the function of providing the mechanical strength and support. So this can also be found in case of the epidermis also of the plant tissue. So now we will understand the epithelial tissue also and other types of tissue one by one. So epithelial tissue we have already watched in the video. Simple squamous epithelium forms a delicate lining because this lining is very thin. Simple squamous epithelium forms a single layer, right? So this layer is very thin. On the other hand, stratified squamous that is present in the skin to protect the wear and tear, that is a thick layer. Stratified means many layers, many layers. The word stratified means layered. So this is a single layer, and when it forms many layers, in order to prevent wear and tear or provide more protection or stronger protection, then it is formed of stratified squamous epithelium. And when the protection need not be so strong, because it is already protected. How? Because it is present in the lining. You can see of the alveoli and blood vessels. Now tell me one thing, what will happen if the alveoli and the blood vessels are lined with stratified squamous? What will happen? Obviously their function will be hampered. How? Because in the alveoli the gaseous exchange takes place. So if that is made up of stratified squamous epithelium, the thick layer will prevent this gaseous exchange process. It needs to be very thin so that gases can diffuse to the other side. So that is why it needs to be made up of simple squamous epithelium. Similarly, in the case of blood vessels, so in the blood vessels, particularly the capillaries, again the exchange of gases and that of nutrients and waste products takes place in every cell of our body. So now again, if the capillaries are lined by the stratified squamous epithelium, so this exchange will be hampered. It will be very difficult for those materials to pass across this membrane, which is layered or stratified. So there is a reason for which the internal delicate organs such as the alveoli, then the blood vessels, they are made up of simple squamous epithelium and not stratified squamous epithelium. On the other hand, stratified squamous epithelium is present in skin because it is the outermost covering. So we are exposed. So we are exposed to the environment where we have to fight against a lot of impurities, pathogens, and every sort of mechanical injury that we can come across on our regular basis. So therefore, in order to protect the body as a whole from all sorts of this difficulties. We need the presence of stratified squamous in our skin. Then we have got the cuboidal epithelium, in which it provides the mechanical support along with providing the surface area for absorption as well as secretion. It is present in the lining of the kidney tubules and the ducts. The ducts act as the ducts of the salivary duct, which actually carries the saliva to the mouth. Then we have got the cystic duct of the gallbladder. Then we have got the hepatic duct of the liver and the common bile duct, in which the hepatic and the cystic ducts are combining. So in all of this, cuboidal epithelium is there in order to provide the mechanical support to the structure of the ducts, as well as increase the surface area for the absorption of the materials and also secretion of the materials into the actually substances that that is carried inside those ducts and tubules. So, and then we have got the columnar epithelium. So in columnar epithelium, they are like the columns. You can see the columns are longer in structure as compared to the cuboid structure. So columns are like the pillars. They also increase the surface area, like the intestinal lumen, which contains the villi. The villi increase the surface area, and the epithelium which contains this villi is known as the columnar epithelium, and it actually absorbs all the digested matter that we have seen, and also secretes some of the enzymes in the intestine. So that is why columnar epithelium is necessary in the small intestine. Next, we also have the ciliated columnar epithelium, which helps in the movement of mucus, for example in the respiratory tract. Now why is this mucus required? Because mucus traps the germs as well as the impurities and dust particles which enter our nasal cavity from the outside environment. Now the mucus is produced, and this traps all these harmful substances, and the movement of this mucus outside through the nostrils help to keep the respiratory tract clean for the proper functioning, and also keep it protected from having infections. So the respiratory tract has got the ciliated columnar epithelium, which actually gives direction to the movement of the mucus, so that the mucus along with the stuck impurities and the pathogens and all the harmful substances can be excreted out of the body, and this actually helps in the process of excretion also. So these are the types of epithelium that can be found. Now we will watch another video regarding these types only that we have discussed in detail.
We had an introductory look at the epithelial tissues in short. Now let's move ahead to know the types of these epithelial tissues in detail. Beginning with the first one, which is the simplest of all, the simple squamous epithelium. In this type, we find flat cells lying upon the basement membrane. These being extremely flat or tile-like are also known as basement epithelium. Their flat nature itself states their function and locations. Such type is mainly used to transport or precisely diffuse substances across membranes and also perform filtration. Thus, where do you think we will find them? Well, think of the thinnest surfaces in our body, yes. of blood capillaries, inner lining of alveoli, and also in the inner lining of mouth. Well, when we talk about epithelial tissue, how can we forget the skin? Wait a second. How can we afford to have such a delicate layer on the surface that covers the entire body? Well, it's simple. The same squamous epithelium comes in the form of layers. So several layers, one above the other, form the outermost layer of skin, which we refer to as the stratified squamous epithelium. Because of multiple layers, the stratified squamous epithelium prevents wear and tear of the upper surface of the skin. Now the next type in our list is the one where we have tall, pillar-like structures. These are referred to as columnar epithelium due to the column-like appearance that they have. And you may wonder, why do we need such tall cells for covering a surface? Well, such tall cells help to carry out absorption or secretion to a good extent. Thus, according to this function, the best example to locate this type of epithelium is in the inner lining of intestine. But sometimes a slight modification is also observed in this type. We find tiny hair-like projections called cilia on the surface of these cells. And you may wonder, why do these cells need hair? Well, the basic purpose is to move the immovable. Yes, whenever you have certain non-motile substances or cells, then these cilia carry out rhythmic movements that help to move these substances. Thus, this type, that is the ciliated columnar epithelium, is found to cover the lining of the respiratory tract. Here, it helps to throw out the foreign particles trapped in mucus which enter the respiratory tract. Another location is in the fallopian tube of the female reproductive system, where the cilia help to propel the ovum in the forward direction. Now, these columnar cells are definitely doing their job well, and at times, some substances progressively pass through small channels which are lined by these epithelial cells. So that along with absorption and secretion, we need support too. Here the cuboidal epithelial cells come for our rescue. These cuboidal cells are found lining the kidney tubules, in the thyroid, and also in the ducts of the salivary glands. Lastly, we also find certain specialized modifications in these cuboidal cells. They attain the capacity to secrete important substances in the body. These are simply formed by inward folds in the cuboidal cells. The cells are called as gland cells, and the tissue is called as glandular epithelium. So where will we find them? Yes, those parts involved in secretions like the salivary glands, mucus glands, glands secreting earwax, mammary glands, and also the glands producing digestive enzymes. Well, with this, we come to the end of the types of epithelial tissues. Do you know what connective tissues are? Watch our next lesson to know more.
So therefore, we have known about the different types of epithelial tissues, their modifications in different regions of the body according to the different functions that they need to carry out in those regions of the body. So the last type, so the last type, that is the glandular epithelium cells, that you have already known, is that the glandular epithelium tissue helps to secrete the hormones and the enzymes from the glands, right? A moment. So for say that you have already seen in the video that the glands are the regions or the particular type of structures which secrete the important substances such as hormones and enzymes in our body, which the hormones are known as chemical messengers and the enzymes are known as biocatalysts, which enhance the rate of reaction in our body. So, and hormones actually help to coordinate the various activities in our body and such as the growth, then the development, maturation, the signaling process, everything. So therefore will these type of substances need to be secreted by special types of epithelium, which is known as glandular epithelium. So the cells of the glandular epithelium are specialized enough to actually secrete these substances into the bloodstream, and this glandular epithelium is found in the regions such as the salivary gland because they secrete the saliva, then the stomach in which the gastric gland is there, it secrete the hormone and the enzymes and the acids, and also we have got the glands in the ovary, and then we have also the other regions of our body where these substances are secreted and they help in maintaining the homeostasis of our body. So we'll keep it up to this, that is the epithelium tissue in this lecture, and in the next and the last lecture of this chapter we will go in detail into knowing the connective tissue, nervous tissue, muscular tissue, and then we'll wrap up the chapter. Until then, stay tuned and do let me know if you have got any queries regarding the topics discussed today in the comments below. And thank you so much for being there with us.